Karabiner 98K. The Karabiner 98 KERS, often abbreviated Karabiner 98K, Kar98K or K98K, and also sometimes incorrectly referred to as a K98. A K98 is a Polish carbine and copy of the Kar98A, is a bolt-action rifle chambered for the 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridge. It was adopted on June 21, 1935 as the standard service rifle by the German Wehrmacht. It was one of the final developments in the long line of Mauser military rifles, although supplemented by semi-automatic and fully automatic rifles during World War II. The Karabiner 98K remained the primary German service rifle until the end of the war in 1945. Millions were captured by the Soviets at the conclusion of World War II and were widely distributed as military aid. The Karabiner 98K therefore continues to appear in conflicts across the world as they are taken out of storage during times of strife. History of K98K. In February 1934, the Heereswaffenamt, Army Weapons Agency, ordered the adoption of a new military rifle. The Karabiner 98K was derived from earlier rifles, namely the Mauser Standard Model of 1924 and the Karabiner 98B, which in turn had both been developed from the Gur 98. Since the Karabiner 98K rifle was shorter than the earlier Karabiner 98B, the 98B was a carbine in name only, as it was in reality a version of the Gur 98 long rifle designated a carbine to adhere to the Treaty of Versailles. The 98B was additionally fitted with a tangent rear sight rather than the more claustrophobic Lang ramp sight. The new rifle was given the designation Karabiner 98 KERS, meaning Carbine 98 Short. Just like its predecessor, the rifle was noted for its reliability, safety, and an effective range of up to 500 meters with iron sights and 1,000 meters with an 8x telescopic sight. The desire for adopting new shorter-barreled rifles and the introduction of the Karabiner 98K, featuring a 600 mm long barrel, were reasons for changing the standard German service ball rifle cartridge. The 1903 pattern 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser S Patroni produced excessive muzzle flash when fired from arms that did not have a long barrel like the Gur 98. It was found that the SS Patroni, originally designed for long-range machine gun use, produced less muzzle flash out of rifles that had a shorter barrel and also provided better accuracy. Because of this, the S Patroni was phased out in 1933 and the SS Patroni became the standard German service ball cartridge in the 1930s. Design details. Features: the Karabiner 98K is a controlled feed bolt-action rifle based on the Mauser M98 system. Its internal magazine can be loaded with 5 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridges from a stripper clip or 1x1. After loading, the empty clip is ejected when the bolt is closed. The straight bolt handle found on the Gur 98 bolt was replaced by a turn-down bolt handle on the Karabiner 98K. This change made it easier to rapidly operate the bolt, reduced the amount the handle projected beyond the receiver, and enabled mounting of aiming optics directly above the receiver. Each rifle was furnished with a short length of cleaning rod, fitted through the bayonet stud. The joined rods from 3 rifles provided one full-length cleaning rod. The metal parts of the rifle were blued, a process in which steel is partially protected against rust by a layer of magnetite. Such a thin black oxide layer provides only minimal protection against rust or corrosion, unless also treated with a water-displacing oil to reduce wetting and galvanic corrosion. From 1944 onwards, phosphating/parkerizing was introduced as a more effective metal surface treatment. Sights: the impractical Langevisier or roller coaster rear sight of the Mauser Gur 1898 was replaced with a conventional tangent leaf sight. The Karabiner 98K rear tangent sight was comparatively flatter and did not obstruct the view to the sides during aiming as the Langevisier. Originally, the Karabiner 98K iron sight line had an open-pointed post-type front sight, and a tangent-type rear sight with a V-shaped rear notch. From 1939 onwards, the post-front sight was hooded to reduce glare under unfavorable light conditions and add protection for the post. These standard sight lines consisted of somewhat coarse aiming elements, making it suitable for rough field handling, aiming at distant area fire targets and low-light usage, but less suitable for precise aiming at distant or small point targets. It is graduated for 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser SS Patroni cartridges loaded with 12.8 G ball bullets from 100 to 2000 m in 100 m increments. The sight line of early production's rifles have the ranging scale copied at the bottom of the tangent aiming element for setting the range whilst lying down. The Karabiner 98K has a 500 mm, 19.7 in, sight radius. The sight lines were factory zeroed as part of the acceptance process before issue. The non-user adjustable windage was factory set by horizontally drifting the front sight in a dovetail. It was discouraged to zero the iron sight line by non-armorers during World War II. SS Patroni ball ammunition was gradually replaced by SME, Spitzgesches mit Eisenkern, Spitzer with iron core, mild steel cord projectile ammunition, and later by SME-LG, Spitzgesches mit Eisenkern Lang, Spitzer with iron core long, ammunition to save on lead and other metals that became scarce in Germany during the war. Within the Karabiner 98K effective range, the external ballistic behavior of these rounds were practically identical to SS ammunition, so the iron sight line range graduation could be retained. Stock. Early Karabiner 98K rifles had solid one-piece stocks. From 1937 onwards, the rifles had laminated stocks, the result of trials that had stretched through the 1930s. Plywood laminates are stronger and resisted warping better than the conventional one-piece patterns, did not require lengthy maturing, and were cheaper. The laminated stocks were, due to their dense composite structure, somewhat heavier compared to one-piece stocks. In addition to the use of walnut and beech laminate, elm was used in small quantities. The butts of the semi-pistol grip Karabiner 98K stocks were not uniform. Until early 1940 the stocks had a flat butt plate. After 1940, some stocks had a cupped butt plate to prevent the separation of the butt stock. All stocks had a steel butt plate. Usage history, pre-World War II export. Though most Karabiner 98K rifles went to the German armed forces, the weapon was sold abroad in the years prior to World War II. In Portugal, a large quantity of Karabiner 98K rifles made by Mauser Werke were adopted as the Espingarda 7.92 mm/937 Mauser infantry rifle. They were later used during the Portuguese colonial war. Other pre-war exports of Karabiner 98Ks were to China, an unknown number of rifles 1935 to 38, and 20,000 in 1937 to Japan. Exports of Karabiner 98Ks decreased as war drew closer, as all available production capacity was needed to equip the German armed forces. World War II use. The Mauser Karabiner 98K rifle was widely used by all branches of the armed forces of Germany during World War II. It saw action in every theater of war involving German forces, including occupied Europe, North Africa, the Soviet Union, Finland, and Norway. Although comparable to the weapons fielded by Germany's enemies at the beginning of the war, its disadvantages in rate of fire became more apparent as American and Soviet armies began to field more semi-automatic weapons among their troops. Still, it continued to be the main infantry rifle of the Wehrmacht until the end of the war, and about between 900,000 and 2 million of them were produced annually. Resistance forces in German-occupied Europe made frequent use of captured German Karabiner 98K rifles. The Soviet Union also made extensive use of captured Karabiner 98K rifles and other German infantry weapons due to the Red Army experiencing a critical shortage of small arms during the early years of World War II. Many German soldiers used the verbal expression Kars as the slang name for the rifle. Sweden ordered 5,000 Karabiner 98Ks that were provided from the regular production run in 1939 for use as light anti-tank rifles under the designation Gewehr M/39, Rifle M/39. But it was soon evident that the penetration offered by the 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser was inadequate, and thus the Gewehr M/39 were rechambered to the 8 by 63 mm Patron M/32, which was a more powerful 8 mm cartridge specifically designed for long-range machine gun fire. Accordingly, the Karabiner 98KS were rechambered in Sweden for the 8 by 63 mm Patron M/32, and the internal box magazine of the M98 system was adapted to match the dimensionally larger 8 by 63 mm Patron M/32 cartridge, reducing the capacity to 4 rounds and accepted into service as Panzervärnsgewehr M/40. A muzzle brake was installed to reduce the excessive free recoil, and the resulting weapon was designated Gewehr M/40 in Swedish service. They were however also found to be unsatisfactory and were soon withdrawn from service, and sold off after WW2. Contemporary use. The Bundeswehr still uses the Karabiner 98K in the Watch-Battalion for military parades and show acts. In 1995, remaining swastikas and other Nazi-era markings were removed from these rifles, after criticism regarding the presence of such symbols on Watch-Battalion kit by the Social Democratic Party. During the 1990s, the Yugoslavian Karabiner 98K rifles and the Yugoslavian M48 Mauser and M48A rifles were used alongside modern automatic and semi-automatic rifles by all the warring factions of the Yugoslav wars. There are a number of photographs taken during the war in Bosnia, showing combatants and snipers using Yugoslavian-made Mauser rifles from high-rise buildings in the Bosnian city of Sarajevo. After 2003, the Mauser Karabiner 98K rifle, along with the Mosin Nagant, the Lee Enfield and the Yugoslavian M48 Mauser, was encountered in Iraq by U.S. and Allied forces, with Iraqi insurgents making use of the Karabiner 98K and other bolt-action rifles alongside more modern infantry weapons like the AK-47 series rifles and the SKS carbine. Many Third World nations still have Karabiner 98K rifles in their arsenals, and it will most likely be encountered in regional conflicts for many years to come. For instance, Tuaregs of the People's Movement for the Liberation of Azawad used the rifle during the Tuareg Rebellion, 1990 to 1995. Civil use. The Karabiner 98K rifles that were used by Germany during World War II are highly sought after collector's items in many circles. The Mauser Karabiner 98K rifle remains popular among many rifle shooters and military rifle collectors due to the rifle's historical background, as well as the availability of both new and surplus 7.92 by 57 mm IS ammunition. As of 2010, the Mauser Karabiner 98K rifles that were captured by the Soviets during World War II and refurbished during the late 1940s and early 1950s have appeared in large numbers on the military surplus rifle market. These have proven popular with buyers in the United States and Canada, ranging from ex-military rifle collectors to target shooters and survivalists. Due to the unique history behind the Soviet capture of Mauser Karabiner 98K rifles, the widespread availability of surplus Mauser 98K rifles and the fact that these rifles could, with relative ease, be adapted for hunting and other sport purposes made the Mauser 98K popular amongst civilian riflemen. When German hunters after World War II were allowed again to own and hunt with full-bore rifles, they generally started to rearm themselves with the then abundant and cheap former Wehrmacht service rifles. Civilian users changed these service rifles often quite extensively by mounting telescopic sights, aftermarket hunting stocks, aftermarket triggers and other accessories, and changing the original military chambering. Gunsmiths rebarreled or rechambered Mauser 98K rifles for European and American sporting chamberings, such as the 6.5 by 55 mm Swedish Mauser, 7 by 57 mm Mauser, 7 by 64 mm, .270 Winchester, .308 Winchester, .30-06 Springfield, 8 by 60 mm S, 8 by 64 mm S, etc. The Magnum hunting cartridges 6.5 by 68 mm, 8 by 68 mm S, and 9.3 by 64 mm Brennecke were even specially developed by German gunsmiths for the standard military Mauser 98 action. Surplus Mauser 98K actions were used by Schultz-Larsen in Denmark as the basis for target rifles. The actions had the German markings removed, were refinished in gray phosphate, and new serial numbers and proof marks applied. The Schultz-Larsen M52 and M58 target rifles used shortened and refurbished Karabiner 98K stocks. Later versions had new target stocks fitted and were available in .30-06, 6.5 by 55 mm and 7.62 mm NATO. Some of these rifles are still in competitive use today, although with the benefit of new barrels. Besides conversions of original Karabiner 98K rifles, other sporter variants made by a number of manufacturers such as FN Herstal, Zastava, Santa Barbara, Spain, and many others have been available at various times in a wide variety of chamberings, but most are large-bore hunting calibers. Modern civilian offspring, the Mauser-type action is widely held to be the pinnacle of bolt-action rifle design, and the vast majority of modern weapons of this type, both military and civilian, are still based on it to this day. The safety offered by its 3-lug bolt and the added reliability of controlled feed, especially favored by dangerous game hunters, are considerable refinements not found in other designs. Throughout the design's history, standard-sized and enlarged versions of the Mauser M98 system have been produced for the civil market. John Rigby Company commissioned Mauser to develop the M98 Magnum action in the early 1900s. It was designed to function with the large-sized cartridges normally used to hunt big 5 game and other species. For this specialized type of hunting, where absolute reliability of the rifle under adverse conditions is very important, the controlled feed M98 system remains the standard by which other action designs are judged. In 1911, John Rigby Company introduced the .416 Rigby cartridge that, due to its dimensions, could only be used in the M98 Magnum action. As of 2010, Zastava Arms manufactured the M48/63 sporting rifle, which is a short-barreled variant of the Model 1948 military rifle and the Zastava M07 sniper rifle. Since 1999, the production of Mauser M98 and M98 Magnum rifles has been resumed in Germany by Mauser Jagdwaffen GmbH, Mauser Hunting Weapons Limited, according to original drawings of 1936 and the respective Mauser patents. Karabiner 98K is a legendary rifle, which has left a deep mark in world military history. With its simple design, durability, and high precision, the K98K has proven its value on the battlefield. To this day, K98K is still loved and sought after by many people.